The town of Lancaster County, PA, nestled in its rolling farmlands and historical charm, seemed timeless and untouched by the frantic pace of modern life. It was the epitome of serene American countryside, where the Amish buggies clopped rhythmically down the roads, and the scent of fresh hay mingled with the cool breeze. One brisk autumn evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the shadows grew long, an eerie quiet fell over the town. The usual hum of crickets and distant laughter from the local taverns was replaced by a profound, unnatural silence. The air felt heavier, charged with a presence that was both ancient and unfathomable. The first sign was the tremor. At first, it was subtle, barely noticeable, like the rumble of distant thunder. But then it grew, shaking the ground with a violent intensity that sent livestock into a frenzy and caused the quaint houses to groan under the strain. People rushed out of their homes, confusion and fear etched on their faces. From the depths of the surrounding forests emerged figures of colossal stature, their forms partially obscured by the twilight. They were giants, towering beings covered in scales that glinted in the fading light. Their eyes burned with a primal ferocity, and their movements were accompanied by the sound of cracking branches and shifting earth. Long, lizard-like tails trailed behind them, and their hands clutched immense javelins that shimmered ominously. The giants, seemingly drawn by an ancient instinct, moved toward the heart of Lancaster. They were the stuff of legends, beings of immense power and size, stripped of ethics and imagination, driven only by raw, predatory need. As they advanced, the air grew colder, and a palpable sense of dread spread through the town. Sheriff Daniel Carter, a man who had seen his share of oddities but nothing like this, rallied his deputies and tried to maintain order. The townsfolk looked to him for guidance, their faces pale with fear. "Stay together. Get to the church," he shouted, hoping the old stone structure would provide some semblance of safety. In the chaos, families clung to each other, their terror mounting as the giants closed in. The ground shook with each step of the monstrous beings, and the town's idyllic calm shattered into a cacophony of screams and crashing debris. The giants were merciless, their lack of ethics evident as they tore through the town, their immense hands sweeping away anything in their path. Carter and his deputies took up positions around the church, armed with whatever firearms they could find. The first giant to approach was met with a volley of gunfire. The bullets, however, seemed to have little effect, merely bouncing off the creature's thick scales. The giant roared, a sound that reverberated through the town like a thunderclap, and retaliated with a swipe of its massive hand, sending men flying through the air like rag dolls. Inside the church, the townspeople huddled together, their prayers mingling with cries of despair. Among them was Eliza Thompson, a young woman with a fierce determination. She had always been fascinated by local legends and had spent years studying the myths and folklore of the area. She remembered stories of giants from ancient times, tales that spoke of their divine origin and their connection to the earth. Eliza's mind raced as she tried to recall every detail. "They are immortal as long as they walk on the ground where they were born," she whispered to herself, a glimmer of hope igniting within her. "If we can get them off the ground, we might have a chance." She ran to Sheriff Carter, who was reloading his shotgun with trembling hands. "Sheriff, we need to get them off the ground. They draw their strength from the earth." Carter looked at her, his eyes wide with desperation but also a spark of belief. "How do we do that, Eliza?" "The quarry," she replied, thinking of the deep, water-filled pit on the outskirts of town. "If we can lure them there and get them into the water, they might lose their power." Carter nodded, a plan forming in his mind. "All right, everyone who can move, follow me. We're heading to the quarry." The journey to the quarry was fraught with danger. The giants, sensing their prey's flight, pursued with relentless determination. Carter and his men fired sporadically, trying to slow the creatures down, but it was Eliza's quick thinking and intimate knowledge of the land that truly made the difference. She led the group through hidden paths and narrow alleys, using every advantage the familiar terrain offered. As they neared the quarry, the giants closed in. The townspeople, exhausted and terrified, could feel the hot breath of the monsters on their necks. Carter turned and fired his last rounds, aiming for the eyes of the closest giant. One shot found its mark, and the giant bellowed in pain, momentarily blinded. "Keep moving," Carter shouted, pushing Eliza and the others forward. The edge of the quarry was just ahead, a yawning chasm filled with dark, cold water. With a final, desperate sprint, they reached the quarry's edge. Carter and a few brave souls formed a line, holding the giants at bay as Eliza and the others began to spread out, shouting and waving their arms to attract the giants' attention. "Come on, you bastards!" Carter yelled, his voice echoing off the quarry walls. "This way!" The giants, driven by an unrelenting hunger, lumbered forward, their massive forms looming over the edge. The first giant, blinded and enraged, stepped too far and tumbled into the water below. A deafening splash followed, and for a moment, the creature thrashed violently, its roars turning to gurgles as it sank beneath the surface. Seeing their kin fall, the remaining giants hesitated. It was a brief moment of doubt, but it was enough. Eliza, standing on a precarious ledge, threw rocks and shouted, drawing their attention away from the fleeing townsfolk. Another giant lunged at her, its massive hands sweeping through the air. She jumped at the last second, the giant's momentum carrying it over the edge and into the water. The townspeople watched in awe and terror as the giants fell, one by one, into the depths of the quarry. The water, dark and foreboding, seemed to swallow them whole, stripping them of their power and leaving only ripples on the surface. As the last giant disappeared beneath the waves, a profound silence fell over the quarry. The townspeople, bruised and battered, stood at the edge, staring into the water. The once invincible giants were no more, their connection to the earth severed by the deep, alien environment of the quarry. Eliza, breathless and trembling, felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Sheriff Carter, his face etched with exhaustion and relief. "You did it," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. "No," Eliza replied, looking around at the gathered townsfolk. "We all did it." The dawn broke over Lancaster County, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink. The town, though scarred and shaken, stood resilient. The giants had come and wreaked havoc, but the spirit of the people had prevailed. As the first rays of sunlight touched the ground, the townspeople began the arduous task of rebuilding, their hearts heavy with loss but also buoyed by a newfound strength. The scars left by the giant's rampage ran deep through Lancaster County, both physically and emotionally. Families mourned lost loved ones, homes were reduced to rubble, and the once tranquil countryside now bore the marks of the monstrous invasion. Yet, amid the grief and destruction, a sense of unity and resilience emerged. The townspeople, bonded by their shared ordeal, came together to rebuild and heal. Eliza Thompson, whose quick thinking had played a crucial role in defeating the giants, found herself at the center of this recovery effort. Her knowledge of local legends and her courage had earned her the respect and admiration of the community. She was no longer just a curious young woman with a passion for folklore, she had become a leader, a symbol of hope. The days were filled with hard work. Men and women of all ages labored side by side, clearing debris, repairing structures, and tending to the wounded. The local church, which had served as a refuge during the attack, now became a hub of activity. Its pews were filled not with worshippers, but with volunteers organizing supplies, coordinating efforts, and providing comfort to those in need. Sheriff Daniel Carter, though exhausted and battle-worn, took on the mantle of leadership with unwavering determination. He patrolled the town tirelessly, ensuring that order was maintained and that everyone had what they needed. His presence was a reassuring constant, a reminder that despite the horrors they had faced, they were not alone. As the town slowly regained its footing, strange occurrences began to unfold. The land around the quarry, where the giants had met their end, seemed to pulse with a peculiar energy. The water, once still and dark, now shimmered with an eerie glow under the moonlight. Some townspeople claimed to hear faint whispers emanating from the depths, ghostly echoes of the giants' roars. Eliza, ever curious and cautious, spent her evenings near the quarry, studying these phenomena. She documented the changes meticulously, filling her journal with observations and sketches. The giants might have been defeated, but their presence lingered, woven into the very fabric of the land. One night, as she sat by the water's edge, Eliza felt a sudden chill. The air grew colder, and the whispers grew louder, more distinct. She strained to listen, her heart pounding in her chest. The whispers seemed to form words, a language ancient and arcane. She could not understand them, but their tone was unmistakable, a warning, a plea, a promise of something more. Determined to uncover the truth, Eliza sought out the town's oldest resident, Old Man Hargrove. He was a reclusive figure, known for his vast knowledge of local history and folklore. If anyone could shed light on the mysteries surrounding the giants and the quarry, it was him. Eliza found Hargrove in his ramshackle cabin on the outskirts of town. The old man greeted her with a wary but curious glance, his eyes sharp and knowing. She explained what she had witnessed, describing the strange energy and the whispers in the night. Hargrove listened intently, his expression growing more grave with each word. When she finished, he sat in silence for a long moment, his weathered hands clasped tightly. The giants were not just creatures of legend, he began, his voice low and rasping. They were guardians, bound to the land by ancient magic. Their fall has disturbed the balance, awakened forces that have lain dormant for centuries. Eliza leaned forward, her pulse quickening. What does that mean for us? For Lancaster? Hargrove's eyes bore into hers, filled with a somber intensity. It means that the giants were only the beginning. There are older, darker things beneath the surface, things that the giants kept at bay. Now that they're gone, those things are stirring. The weight of his words settled heavily on Eliza. The giant's defeat, though a victory, had unsealed a greater threat. She felt a mix of dread and determination. They had fought and survived once, they could do it again. But this time, they needed to be prepared, to understand what they were facing. As days turned into weeks, Eliza and Hargrove delved into ancient texts and forgotten lore, seeking any hint or clue about the entities that now threatened their town. They discovered references to a primordial darkness, an entity older than the earth itself, bound by the giant's presence and now free to spread its malevolent influence. The whispers at the quarry grew louder, more insistent. The water's eerie glow intensified, casting strange, dancing shadows on the surrounding rocks. One night, as Eliza and Hargrove conducted their research, a particularly powerful tremor shook the town. The ground cracked open near the quarry, revealing a cavernous void that seemed to breathe darkness. Eliza knew they had to act quickly. She gathered a group of the bravest townspeople, including Sheriff Carter and a few of his deputies. Armed with lanterns, ropes, and a resolve born of necessity, they descended into the gaping maw, determined to confront whatever lay within. The cavern was a labyrinth of twisting tunnels and echoing chambers, the walls slick with moisture and pulsating with a faint, unnatural glow. The deeper they went, the stronger the sense of malevolence became. It was as if the darkness itself were alive, watching them, waiting. At the heart of the cavern, they found it, a massive, pulsating mass of darkness, its form constantly shifting and writhing. It was a void given shape, a presence that defied understanding. The air around it was thick with whispers, a cacophony of voices that filled their minds with dread. Eliza, her heart pounding with fear and determination, stepped forward. She held in her hand a relic they had discovered in their research, an ancient talisman said to contain the power of light and protection. She raised it high, its surface glowing with a fierce, pure light. The darkness recoiled, its form quivering in the face of the talisman's brilliance. Eliza could feel the power of the relic coursing through her, a force of hope and strength that pushed back against the encroaching void. She spoke words of ancient incantation, her voice steady and strong. The light from the talisman grew brighter, filling the cavern with a blinding radiance. The whispers turned to screams, a cacophony of rage and despair. The darkness writhed and twisted, its form unraveling under the assault of the light. With a final, agonized shriek, the darkness dissipated, its form dissolving into nothingness. The cavern fell silent, the oppressive weight lifted. Eliza and the townspeople stood in the aftermath, their breaths ragged, their bodies exhausted but their spirits triumphant. They emerged from the cavern into the light of a new day, the sun rising over Lancaster County. The town, though scarred, had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. The giants and the primordial darkness had tested their resilience, but they had stood firm. Eliza looked out over the town, her heart filled with a quiet determination. There would always be challenges, always be darkness to face. But she knew, now more than ever, that as long as they stood together, they could overcome anything. Lancaster County, once a peaceful haven, had become a place of legends, a testament to the strength and courage of its people. The giants had come and gone, but their legacy remained, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always hope and the power to forge a brighter future. In the wake of the confrontation with the primordial darkness, life in Lancaster County settled into a semblance of normalcy, albeit with a newfound vigilance. The townspeople remained ever watchful, knowing that the threat of ancient forces lurking beneath the surface was not to be underestimated. Eliza Thompson became a figure of renown, her bravery and wisdom celebrated throughout the community. She continued her studies of local folklore and legends, delving deeper into the mysteries of the land and its hidden secrets. Her efforts were not just academic, they were a testament to her commitment to protecting Lancaster and its inhabitants from whatever darkness might still linger. Sheriff Daniel Carter, too, found himself changed by the events that had unfolded. The experience had hardened him, sharpened his resolve to keep his town safe at any cost. He implemented new protocols for emergency preparedness, ensuring that Lancaster would never be caught off guard again. His deputies, likewise, underwent rigorous training, their ranks bolstered by volunteers inspired by the sheriff's steadfast leadership. Old Man Hargrove, the town's sage, continued to share his knowledge with Eliza and others willing to listen. Though his age had made him frail, his mind remained sharp, and his insights proved invaluable in navigating the complexities of the supernatural threats that loomed over Lancaster. As the months passed, life returned to a semblance of normalcy. The fields bloomed with the promise of spring, and the sound of laughter once again filled the streets. But beneath the surface, a tension simmered, a lingering awareness of the fragility of their peace. It was on a warm summer evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, that the tranquility of Lancaster was shattered once more. A series of strange occurrences began to unfold, each more ominous than the last. Crops withered and died overnight, their once vibrant green turning to a sickly brown. Livestock grew restless, their movements erratic and panicked. And whispers began to spread among the townsfolk, tales of shadowy figures glimpsed in the darkness, of eyes that glowed with an otherworldly light. Eliza felt a familiar sense of unease settle over her as she listened to the rumors swirling through town. She knew that whatever had been awakened in the depths of the quarry had not been fully vanquished. The darkness had merely retreated, biding its time until it could rise again. Determined not to let fear paralyze them, Eliza and Sheriff Carter rallied the townspeople once more. They organized search parties, scouring the countryside for signs of the encroaching darkness. But try as they might, they found no trace of the elusive threat. As the days stretched into weeks, tensions ran high. The once tight-knit community began to fray at the edges, suspicion and paranoia taking root where camaraderie once flourished. Some blamed Eliza and her studies of the supernatural, accusing her of inviting the darkness into their midst. But Eliza refused to be deterred. She continued her research, poring over ancient texts and consulting with Hargrove in search of answers. And then, one fateful night, she made a discovery that sent shivers down her spine. Hidden within the pages of an obscure tome, Eliza found a reference to a being known as the Shadow Weaver, a creature of darkness said to be capable of manipulating shadows to its will. According to legend, the Shadow Weaver was drawn to places of great turmoil and despair, feeding off the fear and suffering of those it encountered. Realization dawned on Eliza. The strange occurrences in Lancaster were not random, they were orchestrated by the Shadow Weaver, a malevolent force seeking to plunge the town into chaos and darkness once more. And it had chosen Lancaster as its next hunting ground. Armed with this knowledge, Eliza and Sheriff Carter devised a plan to confront the Shadow Weaver head-on. They gathered the bravest among them, those willing to stand against the encroaching darkness and defend their home at all costs. Under the cover of night, they ventured into the heart of the forest, where the Shadow Weaver was said to dwell. The air grew thick with anticipation as they drew closer to their destination, their senses heightened by the palpable sense of danger that hung in the air. And then, they saw it, a figure cloaked in darkness, its form shifting and twisting like smoke in the wind. Its eyes glowed with an unholy light, fixating on them with an intensity that sent shivers down their spines. With a roar, Sheriff Carter and his deputies charged forward, their weapons raised high. Eliza followed close behind, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. They would not let the darkness consume their town, not without a fight. The battle that ensued was fierce and brutal, a clash of light against darkness, of hope against despair. The Shadow Weaver lashed out with tendrils of shadow, enveloping its enemies in an inky embrace. But Eliza and her comrades fought with a ferocity born of desperation, refusing to yield to the darkness that sought to consume them. In the end, it was Eliza who delivered the final blow. With a cry of defiance, she unleashed the power of the ancient talisman she had wielded against the primordial darkness, channeling its light into a blinding beacon that pierced the Shadow Weaver's form. With a howl of agony, the Shadow Weaver retreated into the depths of the forest, its darkness dissipating like mist in the morning sun. And as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, the townspeople of Lancaster emerged victorious, their spirits buoyed by the knowledge that they had faced the darkness and emerged stronger for it. As the months passed, the memory of the battles against the giants and the Shadow Weaver began to fade into legend. Lancaster County returned to its peaceful rhythms, its residents going about their daily lives with a newfound appreciation for the fragility of peace. Eliza Thompson, hailed as a hero for her role in defeating the ancient threats, continued her studies of folklore and the supernatural. She delved deeper into the mysteries of the land, determined to uncover any lingering threats that might still lurk in the shadows. Sheriff Daniel Carter, though relieved that the town was once again safe, remained ever vigilant, his watchful eye scanning the horizon for any signs of trouble. He knew that the darkness could never truly be vanquished, only kept at bay by the courage and determination of those who stood against it. Old Man Hargrove, the wise sage whose knowledge had proved invaluable in the battles against the giants and the Shadow Weaver, passed away peacefully in his sleep. His passing was mourned by the entire community, but his teachings lived on, passed down through the generations as a reminder of the town's resilience in the face of adversity. As the years went by, Lancaster County flourished, its fields yielding bountiful harvests, its streets bustling with the laughter of children. But beneath the surface, a sense of unease lingered, a lingering fear that the darkness could return at any moment. And return it did. On a dark and stormy night, when the wind howled through the trees and the rain lashed against the windows, a new threat emerged from the shadows. Strange creatures, twisted and malformed, began to prowl the streets of Lancaster, their eyes glowing with an unholy light. Eliza, now a respected scholar and protector of the town, knew that the time had come to face this new menace head-on. She gathered Sheriff Carter and a band of brave volunteers, their resolve unwavering in the face of the unknown. Together, they ventured into the heart of the storm, their weapons at the ready, their hearts filled with determination. The creatures lurked in the darkness, their forms shifting and changing with every flash of lightning. The battle that ensued was fierce and brutal, a clash of steel and shadow, of light and darkness. Eliza and her comrades fought with all their strength, their every blow a testament to their courage and determination. But the creatures were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. For every one they defeated, two more took its place, their twisted forms writhing and contorting in the flickering light. Just when all hope seemed lost, a voice rang out through the storm, a voice filled with power and authority. It was Old Man Hargrove, his spirit lingering in the world of the living to aid his beloved town in its hour of need. With his guidance, Eliza and her comrades rallied once more, their spirits renewed by the presence of their fallen mentor. Together, they fought with renewed vigor, their blows striking true and driving back the encroaching darkness. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the storm abated, the creatures vanishing into the night like shadows fleeing from the dawn. Lancaster County was safe once more, its residents breathing a sigh of relief as the first light of morning broke over the horizon. In the aftermath of the battle, Eliza stood at Old Man Hargrove's graveside, her heart heavy with sorrow but also filled with gratitude. Though he was gone, his spirit would always live on in the hearts of the people he had touched, a guiding light in their darkest hour. As the years passed, Lancaster County thrived, its resilience in the face of darkness becoming the stuff of legend. The townsfolk went about their lives with a newfound sense of unity, knowing that they were stronger together than they could ever be apart. Eliza Thompson, now a revered figure in the community, dedicated herself to protecting Lancaster from any future threats. She established a network of scholars and guardians, pooling their knowledge and resources to ensure the town's safety. Together, they studied ancient texts and artifacts, seeking to uncover any hidden dangers that might lurk beneath the surface. Sheriff Daniel Carter, though retired from his duties as sheriff, remained a pillar of strength and wisdom in Lancaster. His years of experience and leadership were invaluable to the town, and he continued to mentor the next generation of law enforcement officers, instilling in them the values of courage, integrity, and compassion. The memory of the battles against the giants, the Shadow Weaver, and the otherworldly creatures that had threatened Lancaster lingered in the collective consciousness of the town. They were a reminder of the darkness that lurked in the world, but also of the resilience and bravery of its people. As Lancaster flourished, it became a beacon of hope in a world plagued by uncertainty and fear. Travelers from far and wide marveled at the town's strength and beauty, drawn by tales of its heroic deeds and indomitable spirit. But even as Lancaster prospered, the shadows never truly vanished. Strange occurrences continued to haunt the town, reminders that the forces of darkness were ever present, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Eliza and her fellow guardians remained ever vigilant, their watchful eyes scanning the horizon for any signs of trouble. They knew that the peace they enjoyed was fragile, built on a foundation of courage and sacrifice. As the years stretched into decades, the tales of Lancaster County's struggles against darkness became ingrained in the fabric of the town's identity. Children grew up hearing stories of the brave heroes who had faced unimaginable horrors to protect their home, and the legends of Eliza Thompson, Sheriff Daniel Carter, and Old Man Hargrove were passed down from generation to generation. The town itself underwent changes, evolving with the passage of time while still preserving its rich history and traditions. New generations of families settled in Lancaster, drawn by its reputation as a place of resilience and community. The streets buzzed with activity as businesses flourished, and the once quaint town grew into a bustling hub of commerce and culture. Yet, amidst the prosperity and growth, there remained an ever-present undercurrent of vigilance. The Guardians of Lancaster, led by Eliza and her network of scholars and protectors, continued their diligent watch over the town, knowing that the forces of darkness were never truly vanquished, only kept at bay. Occasional disturbances would arise, reminders that the shadows still lingered on the fringes of the town, waiting for an opportunity to strike. But each time, the people of Lancaster would rise to meet the challenge, their resolve unwavering in the face of adversity. Eliza, now an elder stateswoman of the town, continued her studies of the supernatural, passing on her knowledge and wisdom to the next generation. She remained a guiding light in Lancaster, revered for her courage and dedication to protecting her home. Sheriff Daniel Carter, long retired from his duties, spent his days tending to his farm on the outskirts of town. Though his days of patrolling the streets were behind him, his sense of duty and commitment to Lancaster never wavered, and he remained a respected figure in the community until his final days. And Old Man Hargrove, though gone from the physical world, was never forgotten. His memory lived on in the hearts and minds of the townsfolk, his teachings serving as a beacon of wisdom in times of uncertainty. As Lancaster County continued to thrive, it became a symbol of hope and resilience not just for its own inhabitants, but for all who heard its tales. Travelers from far and wide would come to visit, drawn by the stories of bravery and heroism that had made the town famous. As time flowed steadily onward, Lancaster County continued to stand as a bastion of strength and unity. The tales of its triumphs over darkness became woven into the very fabric of its existence, shaping the identities of its inhabitants and inspiring awe in those who heard of its legendary resilience. Generations came and went, each adding their own chapter to the ongoing saga of Lancaster's history. The town evolved, adapting to the changing times while remaining rooted in its traditions and values. New technologies emerged, bringing both progress and challenges, but through it all, the spirit of Lancaster endured. Eliza Thompson, now an elder stateswoman revered for her wisdom and courage, watched over the town with a steady gaze. Though her body had grown frail with age, her spirit remained as strong as ever, a guiding light for those who looked to her for guidance. Sheriff Daniel Carter, long retired from his duties but still a figure of respect and admiration, spent his twilight years reflecting on the battles he had fought and the friendships he had forged. His legacy lived on in the hearts of the townsfolk, a reminder of the strength that could be found in unity and determination. And Old Man Hargrove, though long gone from this world, continued to be a presence in Lancaster, his memory kept alive through the stories and teachings he had imparted to those who had known him. His wisdom echoed through the generations, a timeless beacon of insight and understanding. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, the people of Lancaster gathered together, bound by a shared history and a shared purpose. They knew that the road ahead would not always be easy, that darkness would inevitably rear its head once more. But they also knew that as long as they stood together, united in their determination to protect their home, they could face any challenge that came their way. And so, as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, casting their gentle glow over the tranquil landscape, the people of Lancaster County stood as one, ready to embrace whatever the future might hold. For in Lancaster, the light would always triumph over the darkness, and hope would always prevail. And so, the story of Lancaster County, a tale of courage, resilience, and community, continued on, its pages filled with the stories of heroes and legends, past, present, and future. And as long as the spirit of Lancaster burned bright, its legacy would endure for generations to come. As the night deepened, and the stars twinkled overhead, the people of Lancaster County gathered around a roaring bonfire, their faces illuminated by its warm glow. They shared tales of bravery and camaraderie, of triumphs and hardships, weaving together the rich tapestry of their shared history. Amidst the laughter and song, Eliza Thompson stood at the heart of the gathering, her eyes shining with pride as she looked out over the faces of her fellow townsfolk. She knew that though the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, they would face them together, united in their determination to protect the home they loved. Sheriff Daniel Carter stood by her side, a silent sentinel watching over his town with a sense of quiet satisfaction. His days of patrolling the streets were behind him, but his commitment to Lancaster burned as fiercely as ever, a beacon of strength and guidance for all who looked to him for leadership. And though Old Man Hargrove was no longer among them, his presence was felt in every flickering flame, in every whispered tale, in every lesson learned. His memory lived on in the hearts and minds of the people he had touched, a reminder of the wisdom and insight that had guided them through their darkest hours. As the night wore on, and the fire burned low, the people of Lancaster County raised their voices in a song of defiance, a song of hope, a song that echoed through the valleys and hills, reaching out into the darkness beyond. For in Lancaster, the light would always triumph over the darkness, and the spirit of resilience would endure forevermore. And so, as the flames of the bonfire danced in the night, casting their warm glow over the town of Lancaster County, a sense of peace settled over the land. The people stood together, their hearts filled with courage and unity, ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold. For in Lancaster, the spirit of resilience burned bright, a beacon of hope in a world filled with uncertainty. And as long as the people stood together, united in their determination to protect their home, the legacy of Lancaster would endure for generations to come. And so, with a final glance at the twinkling stars above, the people of Lancaster County bid farewell to the night, knowing that with each dawn, a new chapter of their story would begin.